I think we've got some pre-selected questions from some of the young producers here, so I'm just going to hand some of these out. First up, we've got Liam.
Hi, Liam.
Hello. I wanted to ask, what inspired you the most to start doing music?
New York, and I think New York for me, growing up and doing graffiti for so long and being in New York and hearing mixtapes from DJs and radio stations, WBLS, Kiss FM, I collect mixtapes and just listen to breaks. Because breakdancing was about putting 64 bars of a break or a minute all edited together, and you just keep working out to these breaks and wondering where do they come from, and searching for them records, and then finding the breaks and then realising it was the break in the record and on the back end of a record, and then finding out that that sample was actually from another artist, you know, which was interesting. So that was my love for music, and also mainly from being in institutes with like probably about as many kids as this in one place, in various institutes, children's homes if you like. And I think the main love for the music came when there's a wall like the back white wall there with lockers that were brown, not as high obviously as you've got to reach them, and every kid could play music on a Sunday, and they'd have it in turns at 15-minute intervals. Every 50 minutes you play music. So every kid's life was in that locker, because you used to go out on Saturday morning, buy a 7-inch record, or whatever record you like. So I collected records in coloured pens, and then we'd play them on a Sunday. So I just got to hear everyone's music. So from blues to jazz, you know, Public Image, the Squeeze, Up the Junction, the Jam, Steel Pulse, Marley, you know, it just came at me, man. And I think that my music isn't mine. It's built, it's all the other genres put together and just somebody cleverly arranging it, that's all.
Okay, next up we got Mimi.
Hi. I was going to ask you, but you kind of answered it already. I was saying whether you thought that the popularisation of music makes it or it kills it.
It's always been the same. You know, I used to throw stones at people years and years ago, but it just makes our music sound better in that sense, because each one's music is, you know, if you're sitting opposite a table, it's a brown table to me. It's a brown table to that person too, man. You got to let them, you know, and especially growing up in a genre where it's still around 20 years later. See, I was saying in the car on the way up here, one of the really important things about how important this music is, from only my viewpoint, it's only my opinion because it's the genre I come from. So I'm not going to speak for everyone else. But I began creating drum and bass music with a lot of friends, and it became a monster. We created a beast worldwide. It's gone everywhere. It's done everything. Washing up machines, commercials, mad, whatever else, gentrification, you know, drum and buyback, it's everything. But I looked at music that I respected, like blues players that I really respect. Pat Metheny, you know, he's like a really good friend of mine now. You know, he's been his biggest fan for years. Great guitar, I mean, unbelievable guitarist. New age jazz from blues stuff. And I've always respected different genres. This is a genre where I'm still in the genre, and 20 years later, the genre is still going as a genre, and I'm looking at people that are doing it. So, yeah, I can't throw stones at kids when I was putting Phil Collins with an Amen break 20 years ago, do you know what I mean? You've got to let them have their time. You have to let people grow up in their own music. You know, and that's why with dubstep's the same thing, it came from us. You know, and it's a really great, funny story with Scream's brother Jack used to be with Blue Night every Sunday without fail. Scream couldn't get in. And it was one of those things that he was driven by the records that he would buy. And I love the fact that not only is the genre still here, but we spawned a genre. And that's what genres should do. You know, blues spawned that, jazz blues spawned that. And the thing is, not forgetting that culture does exactly what it says in the dictionary. It's culture, it will evolve, it will adapt. And that's kind of, there's no worry with that. I think it's about there's almost also this boom with the young kids now. They didn't grow up on it, they just hear it. So they don't have to know all the ins and outs of it. They just want, you know, especially with technology, because technology allowed them to go, I've got a playlist, and it's everything. It's more eclectic. It's probably as eclectic as we were with breaks when we first started doing this. We were all over the place, breaks, as many breaks we can. And music now with the young kids is like, dubstep, damn, techno, damn, it's everything. And that's their lives. My daughter's 17, she's phoned me from a rave, and Dad, can you hear me? That bass line tune you played me? Oh my God, this guy just played a tune, it's just like it. And it was actually tune by Pendulum called The Vault, which is a Doc Scott's label, and someone who just ripped it from a little, it was I think it was, Jump Up artist, and what was his name? And he took a little loop of it and just let it run, and it's like cheeky. But that's what it's there for, man. That's what it's there for, because that's what it's about. So in some respects, I think that the populace of the kind of buy now commercial aspect is overswamped and diluted a lot of stuff. And I think artists have to understand, if you're joining that as one cell of 1,000 cells that have been watered down, you ain't got much chance to swim. So the object is to get to dry land very quickly by creating your own stuff that people can't see, they can't follow you. Go through the door, lock the door. You know what I mean? If he's got a style of music and he does enough of it, you can't bite him that easy. So he just locks the door on it. We used to cover stuff up with hi-hats, so you couldn't take it. You're not having my hi-hat, not having my sound, I'll cover it up. So that's why it became so guarded, and by that time you become established, somebody's going to go, I can't go there, he's got a parking space already. It's important to do that, so that's why it's very important to be very original.
Thank you.
Okay, and now I've got a question from Harry.
So, how did you start out your label? Like, how did you go about it?
Question I've had a million times. In a good way. Metal has really started as I came back from New York, I was in London, I was seeing a DJ called Chemistry, and I went to a nightclub called Rage that she took me to. And I'd been in New York, inspired by Bristolians wearing goose downs and furry hats. And going to this nightclub called Rage and being inspired by DJs, and I got to meet some guys from a label called Reinforced Records, and I just started doing all the artwork for their labels because I'm an artist, so I did all the artwork. I overhauled the R and recreated Reinforced Records, and I was the one that was always going clubbing, and decided when I was going down every Thursday to Rage I would take acetates down. And I like the idea of dub play because I come from sound systems, so I thought if I put a metal head like a skull with headphones, photocopy, I cut it out, spray mount, stick it on, because dub plates at that point were in reggae, were just blank. So I wanted to give them identity because I wanted people to know that when they heard that record it was coming from us. And a group of guys that you couldn't take out. It was like 8 or 9 of us that were like doing different styles. And so Metalheads was the dub plate label before we actually did the final record, and it just became Metalheads, and that was it. And it was the logo was created because it was, the skull and the headphones, which I've seen so many times in the last 20 years. Music will be here far after I'm gone, so I kind of like the idea of the kind of music and art thing, But I just started doing it from there, and the first record I actually did on my own before I actually joined Reinforced was a white label, and I actually got a potato and cut it out in reverse. It was Ajax Project. You can see it online. You just put Ajax Project Goldie, and it's a potato print with ink. And me, Chemistry, and Storm stayed up all night printing 500 of them on white labels. We all clubbed together, got the money for the record, went to Mo's Music, and in the back of an old Sierra, took these boxes of records and they distributed them and said, "You sold all of them, come back next week." And that's how I started.
Okay, next we've got a question from Ollie.
So, what would be like for DJs and producers? What are the best record companies for producers to be signed to?
None of them. Listen, that game's done changed, man. If you want to make really commercial music, then maybe that's going to be good for you. But I think independent labels are the way to go forward, most definitely, because that aspect. It's a bit like an economic collapse. The record industry's already went through the collapse because the internet came. You can do that online on your own by just putting up your SoundCloud and putting it out there. Your music's your music. There's so much of it out there. You just got to be stronger with it. I don't think if you're going to sign something to something, you might as well find a girl band or a boy band, get them together, rehearse, get the record together, go and contact the record company if that's what you want to do. Get an A&R man down and say, "Come and listen to this band. They're great." That's kind of just keep knocking the door and driving them mad. You know, I mean, the thing about the A&R man, as we call them, are like ancient dinosaurs. They don't really exist anymore in record companies. You have the MD, and he has a couple of people that are scouts that will go, and most of them go to just live gigs looking for live bands. And they will scan your Facebook and all that stuff and look at who's peaking and liked, basically. That's how it works now with record companies. So, independently, man, is the way to build that. Independently always is the best way to go forward.
Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes, so hopefully get another 2 questions in there. So next, Nick, if you'd like to,
Yeah, sure.
One
question.
Hello, Nick.
Hello, Goldie. How you doing?
Very well.
Well, I was watching your SBTV episode, Producer's House, and it got me wondering. And I wanted to ask you whether you think there's a big difference between an engineer and a producer.
Big time. An engineer makes lots of tunes himself and does it there and then, and sometimes ends up having folders full of things unfinished. I think engineers have to have the respect and discipline, should I say, to become producers by knowing when to finish and when to start projects and be able to stand back from it. And you know, I've worked with many engineers. I've worked from Dillinger to Strider to Mark Seyfried to D-Gus to 100. I mean, probably 7 really good ones that I could span my entire collection of music. But the payback is that all of my music sounds the same from throughout. It has that same motif and sound, and that's important to retain your sound as a producer. Producer has a likening for certain flavour, and I guess it's up to the engineer. Sometimes an engineer has got to, you know, if he's on a, I get paid X amount an hour, and he's producing everything, then his job is to go, okay, so what do we do next then? And usually engineers have their own curriculum of their own productions, and in exercising that, sometimes it's hard to pay the rent by just doing your own stuff because you're engineering and you want to have a studio. So engineering kind of split in the late 90s, where it was engineers that want to produce anything and any kind of music because they just love engineering because they're very techy, and engineers that want to become producers that want to create their own thing as artists. And it's electronic music especially is finite with that, and it's really important that, you know, I've worked with various engineers. I've worked with engineers in the field of kind of regular music, and they can't keep up with genres of music very well. They just seem to have something missing. Most engineers that I've worked with have obviously grown up in this music, which is important for my particular time. But I think it's really good to, as an artist, if you don't engineer, to work with lots of different engineers to try and see if you do have a feel for yourself, and you're not, because you've got to be out of your comfort zone too, you know. It's important. I've worked with guys on Sibelius, for example, and Sibelius is a different beast, you know what I mean? Because you're dealing with one sound from a viola layered 12 times, and you're putting all 12 pieces in, as opposed to me getting some really comfortable string loop that's got a whole chord in there already. It's beautiful, you know. So it's very important to work with lots of different engineers, and for engineers to work with different artists. It's one of those kind of, that exchange really. It's important.
Okay, and last question we got from Brian.
Brian's in it. Don't it up, Brian.
Thank you. Do you feel your musical skill is complete? Have you reached all your musical targets, or are you still learning and looking to push boundaries?
I'm always on the journey, man. We did a show last night at the South Bank, and it was like 58-piece orchestra, full synths, and it was just full on, and it went from the first night being amazing to the second night being, how did that happen? It just got even more up. And I'm lucky enough to be able to notate and create from blueprints my early electronic stuff, which is kind of standing up all right, to be able to expand it into stuff which is like, wow, there's more colour to this now. And that's really an exciting journey for me. It's almost like rebirth, that is, for me. I've got plenty more left in me. You know, we're recording an album in Thailand at the minute. I did the drums last year. I did 3 days of drums at Battery Studios. I'm a creature of habit. I like recording artists and recording them and just getting like bottles of wine and putting them away and going, I sound like what it sounds like in a year. Because I come from sample syntheticness. I come from that. My life is about, you know, I've got hard drives full of stuff which I don't know where it all is. I know where it's all come from. And I think adding that with live musicians is nothing better than that. So we're looking at, you know, still touring the live stuff next year with the orchestra and with the synthetic stuff and doing that. And that's going down well. And I'm looking forward to Bristol tomorrow night. I mean, it's going to be epic, you know, tomorrow night. And I'm just very proud that the music can last that long. You know, just to music that we said it wouldn't last 6 months. Not bad. But I think for me, painting and doing music simultaneously, I'm blessed, man. It's just a great thing to do. Keeps me young. I'm 50, going, come on, give me a break.
Okay, thank you to everybody that submitted those questions. That's about all we got time for. Goldie, is there anything lastly you'd like to say at all?
No, I mean, just enjoy it, you know, like, music has to be your salvation, man, at the end of the day. You know, when you've had life's hard enough for you guys anyway, you've got so much shit going on outside. You know, parents, and the music's the one, man. It's the one thing that can keep us. If you had to say to me eyes or ears, you can have me eyes, yeah. You know what I mean? I prefer the sound of music, man.
Okay, great. We just like
Sorry,
to
1 second.
Yeah, so I have a really a question that I wanted to. I didn't write it down.
Okay, go on, tell me, ask me, go on, fire it. Go on.
Like the sound of my voice. Yeah, if you could travel back in time and you could see yourself with 18 years old, what advice would you give yourself?
Wow. My advice would be to myself. Just do what you're doing, mate. For me, I think I always had, it's the belief system. Just believe that you can do it. There's a thing that I'll say on Saturday, and I'll tell you what it is, and you got it, it's a good question. I was told once by an old man, a drunk man, on a doorstep. I was painting at night, and he came by, drunk as fuck, and he said to me, so my French is really bad, isn't it? And he said to me, he looked at this piece of graffiti that I painted, and he went, that's really good, man, how good that? He went, look kid, don't wish too hard, because it might come true. You know, and I think that always stuck with me, that if I keep doing stuff long enough, something's got to give. It's not going to be me. You've got to keep putting a tune under your belt, keep putting a production, a painting under your belt. It's not about the immediate tune, man. It's about, before you know it, you've got 30. Before you know that, you've got 40. And your artillery, having that backing is the same backing I was talking about behind this. Because the next record that gets made, you've got 40 behind it. It's got to be right. And if I can't get it right at 50, something's fucking wrong. Do you know what I mean? So it's about keeping the momentum and not giving up. And I think that stayed with me, that fact of knowing that I belong somewhere, but it wasn't quite here. And knowing that I was going to go somewhere. That's the most important thing.
Thank you very much.
Great. Okay, so we just want to say thanks to Mix Radio for hosting us here today. Thank you to Temple Records for your incredible tracks. And thank you to Bristol Music Trust for making this happen. And of course, Goldie for his brilliant insights. And of course, a round of applause for yourselves. Thank you, everybody.